IBO World Champion, La Bella Bestia, coming to you to show my appreciation for the ring IQ. So if you haven't already,
get guard, but
wow,
Howard,
look at the strength.
follow and subscribe Ring IQ and check out the relay where they cover today's top boxing news.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. An update to a previous story we talked about here on the channel. Hearn has interest in matching Katie Taylor against Holly Holm and Chris Cyborg. Both MMA fighters, though only one among them a boxer who crossed over into mixed martial arts, one of the few that actually found success in doing so. Legendary Hall of Fame inductee Holly Holm. Eddie Hearn, promoter of undisputed lightweight world champion Katie Taylor, has interest in matching his fighter in a boxing clash against Holly Holm or Chris Cyborg. Both Holm and Cyborg expressed interest in facing Katie Taylor in a boxing match. Taylor was in action back in April when she picked up a 10-round split decision win over Amanda Serrano at Madison Square Garden in New York City. If you're wondering how we got here and you don't know already, Amanda didn't want to do the rematch, which isn't hard to believe as they were looking at Ireland, Croker Park, for the second fight, for the rematch. Holm, who was recently inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, was a very accomplished boxer who captured several world titles before crossing over into full-time mixed martial arts. Her current contract with the UFC is nearly finished up. Cyborg, one of the top female fighters in MMA, is under contract with Bellator, but has the ability to take part in a boxing match. Two fights that I really find interesting. One is Holly Holm, and one is Chris Cyborg. Holly Holm is a very good boxer. Cyborg can also box, has great power, doesn't quite have the boxing resume of Holly Holm, but they're big crossover fights. I think Holly Holm has a fight left with the UFC, which would make that difficult to do. Cyborg, I think, has a Bellator agreement, but it doesn't cross over into boxing, so just some friendly chats. She was at the show at Madison Square Garden, but no real negotiations, but definitely a fight that I would be interested in for a number of different reasons. Hearn told the MMA Hour, something different and fun. You get to Katie Taylor's stage in her career and you start looking at other fights and it's like, what can you do now? So it's like, is it Holly Holm in Vegas or Cyborg? Hearn explained that circulating reports of Taylor versus Cyborg are premature. He admits that Cyborg, although inexperienced in boxing, is a very dangerous opponent. The thing I don't like about the Cyborg fight is she's big and strong. Katie would have to go up. She would have to fight above 140 pounds, which she can't really do, but Cyborg has a massive problem fighting Taylor because she doesn't mind. But in terms of the fight itself, you're talking about a pound-for-pound great. Katie has a problem because of the strength of Cyborg. That's what makes that fight interesting. She's going to be 20 pounds heavier or close to it on the night.
I wasn't a fan of that fight anyway.
Being honest with you, because Chris Cyborg doesn't come from a boxing background like Holly Holm does, I was never really a fan of that fight. In truth, I'm not a fan of crossover fights.
It's not really a contest, it's a novelty act.
Whereas with Holly Holm, you'd be dealing with a boxer, more or less. You would be dealing with someone who's competed at the highest levels of the sport. They're not a fish out of water.
It's more of a contest, it's more legitimate.
I just think it's something different and Katie's earned the right. It's not an exhibition. It's not like we're just having a joke fight. These are dangerous females and it just brings a new fan base to the sport. Quite right. All of Holly and Chris's followers in mixed martial arts and all of Katie Taylor's supporters in boxing that have followed her career from the amateurs into the pros and all the success that she's had, the meteoric rise. Financially, as far as money fights go, it does make sense. Though if you want to see a genuine contest, a genuine fight, I'd go with Holly.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't lose any sleep over the Chris Cyborg fight not happening.
I was never a fan of that fight. I've said that more than once. And if there's too much of a weight disparity between them, because they do compete in different weight classes from mixed martial arts to boxing after all, if that's the reason that it can't happen, I'm okay with that. I was never a fan of that fight anyway.
Don't get me wrong, I think Katie Taylor's earned the right to take it easy.
Not against her taking on a cash grab, a money fight, because who's fought in more legacy fights in the sport of women's boxing than Katie Taylor?
Her undisputed run in facing those 4 world champions.
Taking on Delphine Passoon in the bubble to settle the score, settle the controversy from the first fight, taking on Natasha Jonas, her old amateur adversary, more recently taking on Amanda Serrano in their long-awaited, long-anticipated showdown, dubbed the biggest fight in women's boxing history. Katie Taylor's had her fill of legacy fights, and if she wants to have a little fun, I understand that, even if I'm not crazy about it, though I like the Holly Holm fight a lot better than I like the Chris Cyborg fight.
Because there's no massive disparity in weight, and because Holly Holm was actually a boxer.
Sporting a professional record of 33 wins, 2 losses with 3 draws. A veteran of 38 professional contests, 38 professional bouts. Needless to say that the Southpaw
Preacher's daughter from Albuquerque, New Mexico, ain't no squirrely amateur. She's no stranger to the squared circle.
having retired from the sport of boxing off a win over Mary McGee in 2013, points decision win, Holly Holm knows what she's doing in a boxing ring. It's the same Mary McGee we saw Chantel Cameron take on not that long ago.
I think she'd have to get down to 140 pounds for this fight.
Not sure what weight Holly Holm campaigns in the octagon. I don't follow the sport, though. To the eye, it's the more sensible and sensical fight with all the same appeal of the Chris Cyborg fight, but less novelty. It's less of a novelty act because Holly Holm actually was a championship-level boxer, and currently, she's a Hall of Fame inductee. So it does make sense. It seems like more of a contest to me.
If they gotta do one of these 2 fights, that's the fight I'd rather see.
It's not set in stone. It seems like Eddie's just bouncing ideas around. In men's heavyweight news, Frankie Sanchez promises more aggressive style now that he's with Joe Goossen. I'm going for knockouts. That's right. He's not with Eddie Reynoso anymore. We talked about that here on the channel. He's training under Joe Goossen, and as I stated the last time, I don't think that's a temporary situation to where
I don't think that's a temporary situation to where he goes back to Eddie after one fight with Joe.
I think he'll be training under Joe Goossen for the foreseeable future. I've been learning a lot in the gym with short distance work. I'm very happy with the work we've been doing together. We're going to be world champions. I know how to box, but I know I need to work on fighting on the inside, Sanchez told BoxingScene.com in an interview. The 29-year-old has dropped his last 2 opponents in Christian Hammer and Efe Ajagba and stopped the previous 3 foes before that. Armed with a 62% career knockout rate, Sanchez barely loses rounds on the scorecards, and along with barely losing rounds, he barely entertains.
What do you want me to say? His fights aren't exciting.
Sanchez said he's willing to take more risks to win the hearts of fans and critics alike, and not just the judges.
You know, I actually think Frankie Sanchez is a skilled boxer, but skill doesn't mean entertaining.
It doesn't. He's a skilled operator, quality operator, the same way that Erislandy Lara is a skilled and quality operator. But that doesn't mean that he's a crowd pleaser. That doesn't make either of them entertaining.
Frankie Sanchez, for the most part, has been an outside boxer, an outside jabber, stick and move guy.
62% knockout percentage. He's got some knockouts here and there, though he's not your according to Hoyle pressure guy or even your boxer puncher that takes risks mid-range to inside to lay the other guy out, to really lay it on the guy. He just hasn't been that kind of boxer, and he's working on that. But because he's working on that...
Well, somebody must have said something.
It's not just me. If you've been following this channel long enough, you'll know that I've been critical of Frankie Sanchez's performances, though not necessarily his boxing, but the aesthetic of his fights, the aesthetic of his matches. He boxed on the undercut of Wilder versus Fury 3. Before his fight with Efe Ajagba, a battle of the unbeatens, we saw a very entertaining rematch between Robert Helenius and Adam Kovnowski. Really helped to galvanize the crowd, get everybody engaged, everybody in attendance, everybody at home. Then in comes Frankie Sanchez against Efe Ajagba, and these two suck all the air out of the room. A very limited Efe Ajagba who struggled to get off a power shot, and a Frankie Sanchez who didn't want to take any risks.
He was winning wide, but it wasn't a fun fight to watch.
It wasn't an entertaining fight. Frankie Sanchez's fights seldom are. Paying public, vulgars, and the Gentiles, they don't want to see you play it safe, staying on the outside, circling around the perimeter of the ring behind your jab. They want to see you mix it up, especially if you're a heavyweight, as the heavyweight division is often associated with knockouts. There's no easy way to say it.
Well, I know it's already a very dangerous sport.
Being honest, turning a fighter into a crossover star, it's not an exact science. There isn't an exact formula. Racking up a bunch of knockouts, that doesn't automatically translate into a guy being a household name. Take Artur Beterbiev. He's got nothing but knockouts. Nobody punches harder at light heavyweight than Artur, but he's not a household name. The most I can say is that while there's no one-size-fits-all answer to getting a guy a big following in the sport, sport, racking up knockouts helps. It at least helps.
It is a step in the right direction.
There's no fail-safe, tried-and-true formula. It's not an exact science, so if what you're looking for is a one-size-fits-all answer, you're not going to find it. However, a heavyweight that can knock guys out, well, the knockouts help.
Helped Deontay Wilder, and he wasn't even fighting good fighters.
Just him knocking people out, whether they were good or not, top-level fighters or not, well, that did garner him some press, that did get him some fans, and if Frankie Sanchez can have at least a quarter of the financial success that Deontay Wilder's had in his career, I think he'd like that, and I think that's what he's working towards. Don't put it all on me. Frankie Sanchez is the one who says he wants to take more risks. Why do you think that is?
Somebody must have said something.
This is a fighter that seldom loses a round, so if he's tweaking his approach, surely it's because someone must have said something. This guy, he's fighting on TV.
You want to entertain people. You want people to want to watch your fights. You want people to want to be there.
That's why I think he's doing this. Finally, some harsh comments from the reigning two-division WBO champion Demetrius Andrade, who hits back at Canelo saying, he called me horrible, but he just got beat by a basic fighter.
Basic, huh? If he's so basic, why don't you go up there and beat him?
He, Alvarez, called me a horrible fighter, but he just got beat by a basic foundation fighter, Andrade told FightHype.com. Know what I mean? I throw uppercuts from miles away. You feel me?
It's a free country, and Demetrius Andrade is entitled to his opinion.
As I am entitled to mine. In truth, I've never been against Demetrius landing that Canelo Alvarez fight. I haven't. Though I never thought it was particularly important to Canelo's legacy either. I mean, a Dimitri Bivol fight offered Canelo Alvarez the chance to win another belt, whereas a fight with Demetrius Andrade...
You got four guys: Jim Orchalo, David Benavidez, Demetrius Andrade, Dimitri Bivol.
And out of those four guys, which one among them had a belt that Canelo could win?
Which one among them was a naturally bigger, unbeaten champion in his prime?
Don't berate Dimitri Bivol as a fighter, calling him basic for spite of Canelo Alvarez. Don't cut your nose to spite your face.
Dimitri has a better resume than you do.
Dimitri Bivol has a better resume than Demetrius Andrade. The name of Joe Smith Jr. alone, and all the fights he's fought, all the times that he's beaten the odds, that's a better name than any name you'll find on Demetrius Andrade's resume. Demetrius Andrade, who said, "Nah, I wasn't surprised. People were running around saying that he went up to 175, but it was okay when he dodged me to go fight Kovalev, who was washed up, damaged, and all this other shit. Now, some of the shit out there, come on, man, stop it. He got beat by a simple foundation fighter, yet that simple foundation fighter would be a better name than any name on your resume. Hell, even the shot-to-shit Sergey Kovalev that he fought.
He was a reigning champion. What was Luke Keeler?
Was Scott Quigley, Walter Kontundokwa, Artur Akavov. These are world beaters? I think it was Nestor Gibbs of the Boxing Voice who echoed my sentiments the best. I think he put it better than I could.
But he's challenging himself like very few of these young guys are.
Like Canelo has done throughout his
Oh.
career.
No, that's what I'm saying. They praise other people for doing what Canelo's done 20 years ago.
They never put down any fighters. They never said a guy's a horrible fighter or that they act like they're above boxing.
But brother, you trying to condemn Canelo for saying the truth. We think Andrade looks sloppy.
Okay, you can think what you want. 32-0 two-division champion.
So if we can think what we want, why are you condemning Canelo for his opinion?
I'm not condemning him. Yeah.
The fact that people talk with disdain in their voice of a dude that's showing you what the definition of pound for pound. It's crazy to me. Andrade used to be my man, as you can see.
Yeah.
He just stopped answering questions because they don't want you to tell the truth. They want me to lie and say you killing it. You not killing it. Yeah. Don't nobody want to see you fight Walter. I'm not going to ruin his name. You know, Walter Akakov, a.k.a. Wolverine, fucking Luke Keeler, Jason Quick. Man, get that shit out of here, bro.
160.
A phrase in boxing is, what have you done for me lately, bro? Yeah. So why am I campaigning for Andrade that's done fuck off for me? What has he done? Like, what has he done in his last 6 fights that has me believing he should be in there?
Well, what did Bivol do in his last 6 fights that had you believing?
Bivol had a belt that Canelo could win. That explains that. And a better resume.
Like, you really think Canelo don't want to fight Andrade? I was like, nah, he don't. That's why he told you. You don't got to take my word for it. He said you're never getting a fight. You're a horrible fighter. You don't want to fight him.
He is a horrible fighter.
Not a horrible fighter.
Bro, did you see the Luke Keeler fight?
It's a free country, and Demetrius Andrade is entitled to his opinion, his professional anecdotes on what kind of fighter Dimitri Bivol is. And if in his mind's eye, Dimitri's a basic foundation fighter, so be it. Because in my mind's eye, and the opinion that I'm entitled to, this being a free country, is that Demetrius is in no position to talk.
Nope.
Dimitri Bivol would be the very best name on his resume, since there is so much missing from it.
Not just Dimitri Bivol, Billy Joe Saunders. He was happy to fight that guy.
Billy Joe Saunders, he tested positive for a banned substance. The fight was called off. Better still, Billy Joe Saunders would be the best name on Demetrius Andrade's resume. Hell, Billy Joe Saunders has a better resume than Demetrius Andrade.
What are you getting at?
Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. Don't call Dimitri Bivol a basic foundation fighter unless you're willing to go up there and prove just how basic he is. At 34 years old.
With as thin as your resume is, you could use a name like Dimitri Bivol. Go on, go up there. Show us how basic he is.
You're 34 years old. You're like 2-3 years older than Canelo Alvarez and far less accomplished. You see this movement in the sport of boxing to where the proven fighter, guy like Canelo Alvarez, who's fought under the hot lights, big fights, big name opponents, you see this movement in boxing to where they give a guy like that a lot of shit for doing things that a guy like Demetrius won't do.
Canelo Alvarez standing in at a whopping 5'7", 5'8". He's up there at light heavyweight.
Really doesn't need to be up there. He shouldn't be by all rights, but he is, and he's fighting the likes of Dimitri Bivol, a reigning unbeaten champion in his prime, while you can't decide whether or not you want to fight Yanni Beck or not.
Well, old Yanni Beck Alim Kanuli, you can't fucking make a decision.
I don't think Demetrius Andrade is a bad fighter. And I've never been against him getting that Canelo Alvarez fight. I think the disconnect between me and a lot of other people, however, is I never judged Canelo Alvarez harshly for having not fought Demetrius because of who he has fought. He fought the #1 middleweight in the world 2 times in Gennady Golovkin. He became the super middleweight division's undisputed champion, took on 3 unbeaten champions inside of a calendar year.
So I'm supposed to look at Canelo Alvarez funny over Demetrius Andrade. What the hell's Demetrius Andrade been doing?
Let me tell you something, sweetheart. It's you guys that got the issue. It's you guys that got the problem. You hold Canelo Alvarez to this unrealistic standard.
You give everybody a pass to fight Tony Tomato Can and Patty Potato Salad.
Everybody else, but when it comes to Canelo Alvarez, you want to hold him to this unrealistic standard when he's already doing more than everyone else, including the guys you're giving a pass to.
Go ahead and criticize Canelo for fighting a 40-year-old Golovkin. Like that 40-year-old Golovkin wouldn't be the best name on Demetrius Andrade's resume.
Like Demetrius Andrade wouldn't like to fight that same 40-year-old Gennady Golovkin.
It's a free country. Demetrius Andrade's entitled to his opinion the same way I'm entitled to mine.
My opinion, unless you're ready to go up there and show us just how basic Dimitri Bivol is, you're in no position to talk.
You ain't got the resume for it.
You don't. I can care less how many altruistic pseudo-sweet science guys want to blow smoke up everybody's ass about you.
The pseudo-sweet science snobs.
Yeah, Canelo Alvarez lost to Dimitri Bivol, and Dimitri Bivol is a better fighter than any fighter Demetrius Andrade has fought.
So my question to you guys is, when are we going to see Demetrius fight somebody like that?
And when are you guys going to start demanding it? You're boxing fans, aren't you?
It's very easy to call Dimitri Bivol a basic foundation fighter when you're not the one fighting him.
Very easy and very cheap.